So this question, let's start again. A program processes messages from users and store them in linear queue for further processing. The queue is implemented as a 1D array message queue, which can hold up to 30 elements, each of which is a string, right? So this is just a global variable, but are we asked to put anything in the array? Huh? No, it's just, I said read line by line. Is that understood? So then I write global, and what is the name of the array? Message queue. Message queue. Okay. Now the next is the global font stores index of the first message. So we need to understand what this is saying. Index of the first message, right? Then I have this as global fonts. Then global what? Where stores the index of the last message. Okay. Then global where index of the last message. So the question states that the main program initialize all the elements in the array to a suitable what? Null value. So that means we have to put values in what? In the array. So that means I have this as message is equal to this times what? Times 30, isn't it? And font to be what? -1. Font as -1. And where as what? -1. Is this understood, guys? Okay, good. So we've written that program code. We are done with that, right? So let's move to the next question. The function insert message. So df insert message. Take a message to be inserted as what? As a parameter. Please concentrate. Look at the board. So message is what? Is the parameter. Not necessarily message. You can even use character or word or whatever. Is that understood? Okay, good. If the queue is not full, so how do we check if the queue is not full? If you're not sure, just take your pen and your paper and draw a small size queue. Is that understood? Then 5, 6. If the queue is not full, this is the rear, because the rear points to the last element, right? And this is what? This is the first points to the first element. If it is not full, what does that imply? The first will be greater than the rear. Okay. What if we have one value? If we have one value, then we have this as front and also this as rear, isn't it? Then it will be greater. Okay, good.
Rear is different from length of the queue minus
1. Rear is length of queue minus 1.
It's different from length of queue minus
1. Rear is pointing to the last element. Length is not the size of the array.
Yeah, so if the queue is not full, the rear is not equal to the length of the
It's not equal to the length of what? Of the array. Good boy. Is that understood? Yeah, you. No, we are writing it now. We have filled the list, but we are not working on the list. We are checking if it is full or not. We are not bringing the list. Look at it. Do you see anything about the list in this function? Are we working on the list? We are checking if it is full. Do you understand? So even in this question, we are starting from it as empty. That was why we only initialize the array with an empty value, with a null value. Do you understand? So with that null value, we are taking it as empty. That was why we are asked to declare font as -1 and rear as -1 to indicate that it's already empty. Is that understood? So in case it's empty, so we are asked to check. The question is saying that what? Check if it is what? If it is not full. That is, it can have something. Maybe you have added something initially. Is that understood? So we are not working on the list. So we are going to write the condition if it is full or not. Do you understand that? Good. So if it is not full, that means there is no value here, isn't it? There is no value at this point. So that means real should be what? Should be less than this 0, 1, 2, 3 should be less than what? 4. Is that correct? Should be less than 3. Yeah, not 4, 3. Because if there is a value here, let's assume 9, that means it is full, right? So that means the real is pointing at that position. Is that understood? But if there's nothing here and there's a value here 9, that means the real will point at this position, right? Which shows that there is a space here. Is that understood? So it is not full if real is less than what? Than length of array minus 1. But we cannot say length of array minus 1 because array is not the queue. Is that understood? Because the array can have many things. We don't care. So we say if what? Real is less than what? The size of the what? Of the queue minus 1. Is that understood? So the size of the queue is what? Is 4. So we say is 4, right? So we now say if real is what? Is less than 3. Is that understood? So what is the size of the queue in this question? 30. So then we say if what? If real is less than what? 29. Is that understood? Yeah.
We say that if here is less than 49 means the array is not full, but
Yes.
if we remove some elements from the beginning, it also means that it's not full. Like if the head pointer is not at 0,
Yeah.
the array is also not full.
No, we don't use that to check if it's not full. Yeah. Full means is it occupied or not? It doesn't mean does the first element, does the first index as an element? No. Do you understand? It's just like we have seats in this class. Everyone is seated. Why that girl is the first person? Do you understand? If you want to check if this class is full or not, you don't check the first person. You check if the number of spaces is occupied. Do you understand? That is what you check. Your question. Okay.
Like, if we're checking the number of seats which are occupied or something, you cannot check it with only real. You need to check the difference between the first one and the last one.
The first one and what?
And the last, like the rear and the front.
No, we don't check the difference.
Because
Yes.
someone like if we made a DQ now in the queue,
Yeah.
and the last element was like 29 or something.
Yeah.
It would be like out as full. Like
Yes, it's full.
is it full?
Yes, it's full. Yes, because look at this. This is the first element 9, 5, 3, 2, isn't it? This is the rear, and this is what? This is the front. Now you DQ 9, right? Then the front becomes here. Is that understood? This is now the front. Now you want to add something new. If you add something new, you can't add it to this point because the something new you are adding is coming last. Q is first in, first out. So if I add 5 here for maybe 7 here for example, then I have done a partial. You guys are in a queue. The first person has left. Then you are now the first person. Then I came. Then instead because the first person had left, then I fill in the position. What will you do?
So we don't like make the queue cycling as we need to.
The question does the question say the cycle queue?
Yeah,
Queue?
I understand. Just asking, like,
Wait, what does the question says? Read. It says a program processes message from user and store them in a what? In a linear queue. That means the question can also act in the circular queue. But the question says in a linear queue. Is that understood? Good. Yes.
Does it change if, for example, they say like where it's pointing to the not the last element, but like the next element?
It depends on the question. That's why you must understand the question. Question may say the rear is pointing to the next available space. So which is the reason why you can't cram anything. If you really understand, then you know what you are doing. Do you understand? If you are confused, just draw this queue like I used to draw it in class. Maybe 4 sides. That will be very easy for you to comprehend. So with the understanding of these drawings, it makes you understand what you need to do. So please, whenever you are asking questions or you are solving problems on this, always make sure you use your pen to analyze before you start writing your code. Because most of the time you may think you are doing the wrong thing, but you are doing the what? You may think you are doing the right thing, but you are doing the wrong thing because you did not even visualize what you are doing. So you just memorize what we used to do in class, and you are typing what we used to do in class. What if the question has changed? In the next test, I may say where is pointing to the next available space. I may write that in the next test. So that means if you don't understand what you're reading, then everyone will fail. That's what it means. Then I will be justified because the question was clear. Is that understood? So read the question, understand what the question is saying, and solve according to what the question is saying. Don't say, because we always say where is pointing to the last element in class. So that means because I'm saying where pointer here, then it must point to the last element. Then I start writing where pointer is last element. No. Is that what the question is saying? Is that understood? Please understand the question. If possible, draw, visualize before you start writing your code. Once you visualize, you are sure of what you are doing. Is that understood? Good. So let's move forward. Now, so this shows that it's what, whether it's empty or not, right? So this is saying it is not empty. Is that correct? So let's go back to the question that says if it is not empty, that is, if it is not full, this saying it is not full, it adds message to the what? To the queue. Add message to the queue. To add message, we are always used to writing dot append, isn't it? And I said that we use dot append when we are using an empty list. So is this list empty, Sylvester? Which is the reason why we can't use dot append. Is that understood? It is not empty. We have actually assigned some null value. So that means we are going to change one of the null value to the new value. Is that understood? So that means that we say that message queue of what? Of where? Of where? Why am I using where? I want to put it in what? Where? Okay, let me use where plus 1. Why am I using where plus 1? If it is not full, that means if it is not full, Sylvester, are you following me? If it is not full, that means I have 5, 7, 9. There is still a space, right? The rear is pointing to what? To this. The front is pointing to this. That means I must put the next element in this point, right? Which is the next, which is rear plus 1. If it is empty, what is the value for rear? Minus 1, isn't it? That means I must put it at this position, isn't it? That means rear plus 1 will now be what? 0. So I must put it in the 0th position. Is that understood? Is that understood? So that's why I have it as rear plus 1. So the next question is now saying that update what? The appropriate pointers, right? And return true. So to update the appropriate pointer, rear plus 1 has not been updated. Do you know? I only put the message in the next position, but I did not move rear to the next position. Is that understood? Then I say rear is equal to what? Rear plus 1. Is this understood? In the what? In the if.
Yeah,
We should put it in the if. Why? Because everything should only happen if the list is not full, isn't it? So it should be in the list, correct? Yes. No, it's if it is
It can be taken. It can take the value 29.
no. We are checking if it is not empty, right? That's what we're checking. If it is not empty, that means there will be no value in the 29th position. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you understand? Sorry, not empty. We are checking if it is not full. If it is not full, that means there will be no value in the 29th position. Look at it again. If it is not full, that means there will be no value in this position. If there is a value in this position, that means it is full. Because if there is a value in this position, that means the rear pointer will point to this position, isn't it? If there is a value in this position, that means the rear pointer points to this position. Is that correct? That means it is full. Is that understood? Is it not full this way? It's full. Because the rear pointer is pointing to the last value. but we are asked to check if it is not full. So if it is not full, that means the rear pointer must not point to the last position. It must point to any position apart from the last position. Is this understood? Good. Any other question? Yeah, your question.
Why do we increment like inside?
Rear pointer. Why do we inside? Because we are checking if it is not full. If it is not full, we added the next value, right? Rear was here, isn't it? When we add the next value, we need to put rear to be here. And don't forget, we only added if it is not full. So it should be in the if statement, not out of the if statement. Because if you put it out of the if statement, that means if the list is full, it still increase rear pointer, which is wrong.
That's not what I meant. Like,
okay.
Why do we do rear plus 1 inside the brackets and also
outside? Okay, good. We need to put the value in the next position. So if we have a queue such that I have 5, 7, this is what? The rear. This is what? The front, right? Now I want to add 2. Where do I add 2? Where is after 7? Is it not this position? So that means I have to put it in what position? Is it in the position of rear or rear plus 1? Rear plus 1.
Yes.
That's why I have it as message. Put that value in what? In the position of rear plus 1 is equal to message, isn't it?
But you did it twice.
Is equal to message, right? Yes. Okay, is that your question?
But why did you do it twice?
Yeah, good. This is just saying put the message here. That is what this is saying. But it did not increase rear point 1 to the rear position, to the next position. This has not been moved to this position. It's only saying put the message in the next position, right? But the message is now here, which is true, right? Where is where? Where is still here. So I need to increase here so that it's now pointing to this position. Is that understood? Good. Any other question? Good. So let's move forward. So the message has been saved in the next position and I've increased the pointer, right? Apart from that, we are not done because we need to check that was it empty before we started. We only check if it was full, right? Or not full. But we didn't check if it was empty. So if it is empty, we need to make sure the first pointer is pointing to now the first. Is that understood? If it is not empty, that means the first pointer is already pointing to the first element, isn't it? So we now check that if font is equal to -1, that is, was it empty? Do you understand, Sylvester? Was it empty? Then we say what? Font is equal to what? Font plus 1. Is that understood? Sorry, no, this is wrong. It should be font is equal to 0, so that it doesn't always increase font. It should be fine. Yeah, it's the same. Because this will only be correct once, right? After that, it won't be correct any longer. So both is correct. Yeah, both is correct. Oh, good. Is this understood, guys? So before I move on, this is a private function. So I will need to redeclare my global variable in each of the functions. Is that correct? So the question is answered. Excuse me? Oh, good. The question is not fully answered, which is the reason why we must always go back to the question. It says, and return true. So that means after doing this, true should be returned, right? So we return true. So else, if it is what? If it is empty, right? If it is full, isn't it? You return false. If it is full, you return false. That's what it says. If the key is full, it returns false. Is that understood? Your question? If what? Because if it was empty, font to be -1. Do you understand? Then if it was empty, that means you've placed the first element in the first what? In the first place, right? But font is still pointing to empty, not pointing to the font element, to the first element. Is that understood now? Good. Now the next one now says that the function retrieve message. So def retrieve message. Does it take any parameter? It returns empty if the queue is what? Empty. So we need to check if the queue is empty. That's the first thing. So how do we check if the queue is empty? You guys, can you see the way I'm solving the problem? I am drawing before I can solve the problem. I'm not solving the problem based on what I have known. Is that understood, guys? I'm not solving the problem based on what I know. I am solving the problem based on what I could draw and I could analyze. So please be careful in your exam. Okay? Good. Then I have my list. I want to check if it's what? If it's empty, right? It can be empty if font is equal to -1. That means it's empty. Is that correct? It can also be empty. Let's assume we have 5, 2, 7, 9. Then we are dequeuing. This is font and this is what? Rare. Is that correct? When you dequeue this, font comes here. Is that correct? When you dequeue this, font comes here. Is that correct? When you dequeue this, then font comes here. Is that correct? Is it empty? No. Then when you now dequeue this, what happens? Font now gets out, right? That means font will be more than rare for it to be empty. So that means for it to be empty, font will still be greater than what? Rare. Or, I'm coming, just give me a second. Or, if you have this, and we have what? 5, 7, 8. Is that understood? Then we have what? Fonts and what? Rare. Is it empty? No, it is not empty. Is that understood? It is not empty. Let's assume we have 2 more spaces left. Is that understood? Is it empty? No. If you dequeue this, then this is now font. Is that correct? If you dequeue this, then this is what? This is now font. Isn't it? If you dequeue this, then this is now what? Font. Is it empty now? So it's empty because font is more than rare. So that means it's only empty on 2 conditions: if font is -1 or font is more than rare. Is this understood? So with this, because of my drawing, I am sure of what I have done. Then I can write that code. That if it is empty, the question says that what? It says that if it's empty, return empty, right? So I say if font is equal to -1, or font is greater than what? Rare. That means it's empty. Is that correct? Good. Are you all following me? So if it's empty, what happens? Returns empty. So return empty. Understood? If not, else. If it's not what? Empty, right? It returns the first message in the queue. Returns what? The first message in the queue. That means it returns message queue of what? Of head. Is that understood? Of font, rather. It returns message queue of what? Of font, which is the first message. Is that understood? Now, the next thing is what? And update what? The appropriate pointer. Anything I write after return will not run. Is that understood? So that means that I need to write anything before return. And what is the appropriate pointer you have to update? Which is the font, which I've been writing here. When you dequeue, this is font. When you dequeue, do you update rare? No. So that means you say font is equal to what? Font plus 1. So that means that you cannot return message of font, right? You have to return what? Font of what? -1, because you must return the value in the what? In the previous, right? Do you know that we increase font before we return? When you increase font, the next value is now font. But we need to return the value in what? In the previous, which is now font -1. Is that understood? Do you understand? Are you sure? Confused? Kind of. Let me draw it. Now, let's take a look at this. This is 5, 2, 7. This is what? Font, and this is what? Rare. Isn't it? Now, we said that font is equal to font plus 1. We want to return the first element. What is the first element? Font, which is 5, isn't it? But what do I write here first? Font, that means font is now true. That means font is now true. So if I now return message of font, what will I return? I will return 2. But am I supposed to return 2? What am I supposed to return? 5. So what am I supposed to do? Return message of what? Font minus 1. Do you understand that now? Are you sure? Good. Another question. So are we done with that? No. With else, are we done? Let's check if we are done. It says that it returns first element in the queue, right? Which is exactly what we have done. And update what? So we updated the pointer before we now what? Is that understood? We've done that before we now. Okay. Let's move forward. Now the next is we're done with retrieve message, right? Now the next is D. The message to be stored in the queue have special formats where the first 5 characters are alphanumeric and the 6th character is what? A checksum. Calculate based on the following rules. So this is the rule. Convert the first 5 to ASCII value. So that means that I will take each of the first 5 to ASCII, isn't it? So that means I will take first character first to ASCII to get the value. Second, third, fourth, and what? Fifth. I can use a for loop. I can also write it one by one. They are both correct. Is that understood? They are both correct. Now, the next, sum the ASCII values of characters at what? At even position, right? So that means that even position is it this? Is it an even position? How about this? Okay, sorry, this is 0th index. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But position is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, isn't it? So that means this is even, this is even. Is that correct? Why this is odd, 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 which does that I'll be given what? In this question. Yes, this is position 1, position 2, 3, 4, 5. But this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that understood? Okay, good. So we are asked to sum ASCII value of at each position, multiply the one at odd by 2 and add them to the sum, divide total by 26 by finding the remainder, and this I don't understand what that means, but let me come to this table that I've explained what that means. Is that understood? This table I've explained what that means. It says an example, ABC12. So we have ABC12. A is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? When we convert A to ASCII, what do we have? 65. B, 66, 67, 49, and 15. So that means that this is position odd, right? So odd, we multiply odd by 2. Do we multiply even by anything? No. We multiply odd by 2. Even by anything? No. Odd by 2. Is that understood? Then we get the result and add everything together. Can you see that? So even if I don't understand all this English, I can understand this table. So I don't need to waste my time reading the English. Is that understood? Some of you wasted your time reading, trying to understand what that English was saying. And whereas an example has been written for you. Is that understood? So whenever you see some question like this, it's also in the past question. Don't waste your time reading that. Go to the example and understand the example. Then that will help. So that means that the first thing, you convert to ASCII, find the odd position, multiply by 2, add it together to every other things, right? So that means I need a code to convert to ASCII, isn't it? So to do that, there are several ways to do that. There's a function called ORD function. ORD function. That function is such that, Control A, this, is such that when you say A is equal to ORD of A, for example, then print A. Let's see what this will print. What does it print? It converted A to 65. That is the function.
What if we don't know the function?
That is exactly what I want to do now. So, can you see it's just straightforward? But what if you don't know the function? What are you supposed to do? Okay, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z. If you go back to the question gave us two arrays in the question, right? You can see there's an array from A to Z, an array from what? From 65 to 48 to 90, then 48 to what? 57, isn't it? Then I can write this as an array in two arrays or even one array, depends on, or two-dimensional array. It depends on how fast you can think or what you are able to think about. Is that understood? But me as a slow student, I will think of two arrays. Is that understood? So let me put that the function and say convert. Let me just say convert, then character. The character to what? To convert, okay? Then I declare two arrays. Let me call the first characters. Characters, which is equal to A, B. I will add the quote later. C, D, E, F, G, H, I. I think I've done that before, right? Have I?
Record this, please.
Okay, after doing this, so we say value is equal to x in range of what? Of 40, sorry, of the first value is 65, right? And 65 to 90, that means I end at 91, right? So 65, 91. Okay, for x in, yeah, x for x in ranges, and I also have value is equal to value dot append, right? Then I have this as what? As x in x for x in range of what? Range of 40, 48 to 58. Okay, good. So that this has 65 to 90 and 48 to 57. Okay, good. 48 to 57. That is value. Okay, good. So value is known. So let me try and test this code, right? So what do I do? When I have character, it should map, right? So how does it map? Check if the character is in characters. If it is there, it returns the index and pick up the value in what? In value, isn't it? So I say if what? If character in what? In characters. Is that understood? If character in, that is, if character can be found in characters, is that understood? Then I say what? Okay, what that is saying is we find the index, right? And say this is equal to what? Characters dot index of what? Car. Okay, good. So this will return what? The index, right? So then we say that then ASCII value, or instead just write return. What are we returning? The value. That will be what? Value of what? Of index. Index. Oh, good. So this will return the what? The ASCII value of each of the character. Is this understood? So we've learned how to return what? The index of what? Of a character from an array. Okay, good. So let's go back to the question. So I think this question makes us learn more syntax, right? More ways of using what is it called? Strings and numbers. So the next question now states that, oh no, not yet. The function process messages, df process messages, takes what? 10 messages, not as a parameter, right? Not as a parameter. So no parameter, isn't it? No parameter of 6 long of 6 character long as input from the user, right? So that means we need input from the user. How many characters? 6. So I say for I in range of what? Of 10, because we need 10 characters. Is that correct? Yes, 10 times. Okay, use, that's correct. 10 messages, right? So then I say user is equal to input. Please enter your message. Because if you ask the user many times, 10 times. Is that correct? Okay, good. What is the next thing? Of 6 character long, right? So after taking everything, what should we do to that? Each message should what? Should be 6 character, isn't it? So that means that each message is a string. You know that I can take each value in a string. Is that correct? So I can take user 0, user 1, user 2, up to what? 6. Is that understood? Is that understood? I can take each of them 6 times. So the 6 character is what? Validate them by checking the last character against checksum. Is that understood? That means we take the last character and check it against checksum. Is that understood? So the first thing is calculate checksum. Yeah.
Question. Should we not write a code to make sure that the user really puts 6 characters?
If I need it, I will do that. Let me finish this. When I'm done, I said answer line by line. So when I start thinking of something else, then I'll start delaying myself from finishing, because I'm thinking of more things. I've left what I'm supposed to do. It causes more delay for myself. If I do what I'm supposed to do, then I need to do that. What do? Then I just add. What if I don't need it? Then I would have wasted some time doing that. Do you understand? So let me do the next first thing to do. Then when I'm done, then I go back and check that, oh, then this doesn't work. This does not work. I need to add this. I need to add this. But don't forget, what you need to add may not earn you mark. Don't forget. But the instruction will earn you mark. Okay, good. So what is the next thing? Checksum. So we need to calculate checksum, right? So how do we calculate checksum? This is it, right? So what is the first thing? We calculate sum. Before we calculate sum, let's convert the first 5 to what? To ASCII, isn't it? Then I call the function to convert to ASCII. What is that function? Convert. Convert. What am I converting? It will take a parameter, right? It will be a parameter, right? So what is the first parameter I have to pass? Message what? No, not message. User 0. Is this understood, everyone? Understood? Convert user 0. Is this correct? No. Small letter u. So it will return something, isn't it? Won't it return something? So let me say value. That is no, not yet. I'm converting to ASCII. Then before I now start adding. Is that understood? So let me call it, let's say x1 is equal to convert user 0. Then x2, instead of this, I can just say x1, x2. Is that correct? Remember I taught you guys this in class? X3 and x4, then x5. 5 characters, isn't it? It's got to convert user 0. What do I write now? User 1, right? We did this while we're dealing with what? With binary search.
Can we not just try to convert user I?
Use I, right? I say for, yeah, you can do that as well. Yeah, you can use the for loop. That's correct. Yes, you can use the for loop. Can you all see the board? So, user what? 2. So, for loop will be faster, right? Okay, good. But let me write it this way. You can write yours as for loop. It's the same thing. It will be faster, but I want everyone to see the picture. Okay, good. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This I've put every element and convert them to what? To what? To ASCII. Okay. Huh? It's not 5, it's 4.
Oh yeah.
5, but
It's my position.
So sum is equal to, what is now the sum? So I need to say sum plus, because I need to have declared sum as what? As 0. Is that correct? It's got to 0. We can even do it that way, right? Okay, because I'm not using the for loop. That's correct. So sum is equal to what? What's the first one? 130. How do I get 130? 2 times the first, isn't it? So which is 2 multiplied by what? X1. Do you understand that? Plus what? X2. Plus what? 2 times what? X3. Plus what? X4. Plus what? 2 times X5. 2 times X5. Then we find the checksum, isn't it? So the checksum is what? The sum divided by what? 26. We find the remainder, right? So we say checksum is equal to sum modulo 26. Is that correct? What would this 26 give to us, guys? It will give us the index. Is that understood? It gives us the index. So that means you just count the index. Okay, now checksum will return a value. So that means if the sum is, where's the blackboard? Checksum is 11, right? Then 11 is where? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 is at 75. Is that understood? But we need to add 1 so that it becomes, is it plus 1? Because the checksum is what? Is k. So k means it must be, okay, that will be minus 1. Yeah, correct. Because it is 0, 1, 2, isn't it? So that means that checksum, so checksum is equal to checksum minus 1. I hope you guys understand this, right? Why it is minus 1 and not plus 1. Okay, now good. So checksum is supposed to be indexed, right? So to prevent me from declaring too much, because this function is supposed to be part of this function, since I've taken it out, let me make this index to be what? To be a global array, so I can use the same index all through. So instead of writing checksum, I can write index, right? No, don't need of writing index. I need to find the index, right? Of the character, isn't it? So what do I need to do now? I know what checksum is. So if, according to this example, I've seen my checksum as 11, right? So how do I do it? What do I do? It will be equal to what?
It should be equal to the 6 value, the 6 character.
Yeah, we've done that. It should be equal to the character, right? So what do I do now? I need to take it back to the character, right? Is that correct? So how do I take it back to the character? Character of checksum. Is that understood? So then I write that if characters of what? Of checksum, is that correct? Then is equal to what? Is equal to the last character in what? In the message. And what is the last character in the message? User 5, right? Isn't it? So user 5. Okay, user 5 is not, okay, good. User 5. Is this understood? So if it is equal to user 5, okay, good. That is correct now, right? So why is character underlying it? Because character is just a private what? Private variable to this, isn't it? We need to make it public by making it what? By declaring it as global. So global characters, right? So at this point, then I write this as what? Global characters. Understood? So down here, then I also declare it as what? Global characters. Is that understood? Is that understood? Yeah. So I'm saying that if checksum is equal to user 5, that is, I'm taking user 5. User 5 is what? Is the last character in the message, isn't it? So I'm comparing with what? with character checksum. And character checksum is what? Is the character at that checksum position. Is that correct? So if it is equal, what do I do now? That means it is valid. Is that correct? That means it is valid. So what is the question saying? Let me follow the question and don't do what I think. So the question says, validates them by checking the last character against what? Checksum, which is exactly what I just did now. Is that understood? Enqueue valid message in the queue without what? Checksum. So if it is valid, I put that message in what? In the queue. Without the checksum. So how many characters am I putting in the queue? 0 to 4. I won't put the fifth one. Is it the sixth one? Isn't it? So how do I put that in the queue? What is the queue first? Message queue, right? So do I need a for loop? I need enqueue function, right? And what is the enqueue function? Insert message. Is that correct? So insert message takes the whole message. Is that correct? So that means that. So I call insert message and pass the characters, right? The message without the what? The last one. So how do I pass it without the last one? User what? 0 to 4. So then I write user, then what? 0 full column 4. Is that correct? So you pass the messages from 0, 1, 2, 3 to what? 4 to the parameter. Is that understood? So these are simple as that. Understood?
Shouldn't we assign it to variables because insert message will not give us true and false?
So insert returns something, right?
Yes.
Insert returns true or false. So I can put it to what? To if so I can say variable is equal to this. Is that understood? So because it returns something. So whatever is returned will be saved as variable. Is that understood? Good. Okay, the next thing is now saying that enqueue the valid message without the checksum using the insert message. An appropriate message is displayed if message is what? Inserted successfully, right? Which is exactly what so the message has been saved in what? As the variable, because that function will return something, right? It will return true or false. Can you remember?
Yes.
Returns true or false, isn't it? Okay, good. So that means if it is true, it has been inserted. If it is false, it has not been inserted. So if it is not inserted, so that means that it is either full, which is the reason, not because it is not valid. Because this message will be called if that character is valid. So if it is not inserted, that means it was full. Is that correct? Good. Good. So we now write that if valid variable is equal to what? Is equal to true. Then print message has been enqueued. Right? Then I write else. Print the queue is full. Is this understood, everyone? Okay, good. So that question has been answered. So the next question is now saying that invalid messages are not added to the queue. If it is not valid, so it comes back to this else. Is that correct? If it is not valid, it can be added, right? So nothing, we don't need to write anything. The function counts and displays the number of invalid message. So I need a variable to what? To count the number of times it was not added. Is that correct? So I can say that count is equal to what? Count plus 1, isn't it? So I need to have declared count as what? As 0. Is that understood? So count is equal to 0. So that whenever any message is not counted, count what? Increases. With count, I know the number of what? Of messages that is what? That is not added. Is that understood? So with that, I know the number of messages what? That is invalid. So the function count and display. So after counting, what happens? What will happen? Then it's what? It displays after counting, right? And it will count after the if, isn't it? So then I write print the numbers of invalid message is is count. So I need a format, right?
Yeah.
Is this understood, everyone? Okay, good. Then that is the end of the code. It's as simple as it. But before I move, I've used message count in this code, right? Huh?
The count should be outside the for loop.
It should be outside the for loop. Oh, good. It should be outside the for loop because it should count after every messages has been entered, right? So it should be outside the for loop. Thank you for reminding me that it should be outside. After every messages has been received is when it should now tell us how many messages were invalid. Is this understood? Okay, good. Now, the next question is modify the main program. So let's go back to the main program. I think in one of the videos I said always declare what? A function for main, right? So you don't always have to go back to modify the main program every time to like copy and paste. Because if you don't write the main, you have to copy everything after all the function, isn't it? But if you write it as a function, it just remains there. So let's write a main program, which is what? It's not compulsory, like I said. Main. I hope you guys understand what I mean by that. You should have seen it in every video I mentioned. So I have to put all this in the main program. So that this goes this way. So anytime I ask you to modify the main program, I'll just go to this function to modify. Is that understood? If I don't have it in a function, I have to copy everything, then take everything down after all functions. Because if I call any function, it should say invalid if it is before any of the function. But if I write it as a main function, I don't need to do that. Is that understood? So then we are asked to modify the main program to what? To call process message. Then I call process message. Process message. Does it require any parameter? Any parameter? So you can check if you are not sure. No parameter. So what is the next thing? Call what? Retrieve message. Retrieve. Any parameter? No parameter, right? So let's check and confirm. Retrieve message. Have we written that? Yes, we've written that. No parameter, right? So what's the next thing? Display a message if the queue is what? Empty, isn't it? So where we display a message if the queue is empty, that is for what? Retrieve message, right? So retrieve message is returning something, isn't it? That means we can save that into a what? Into a variable. Is that understood? So we can say that variable is equal to retrieve message and say if variable is what? Is equal to what? Empty, because it will return empty. Is that correct? Then we write print what? The queue is empty. Is that understood? So what is the next? If it's not empty, right? What are we displaying if it's not empty? The message retrieved, isn't it? Will the message retrieved be saved as variable?
It will be saved as variable.
It will be saved as variable, right? Because when you are returning that value, isn't it? So else, what are you printing? F, the what? The value returned is what? Is variable. Is it understood? Okay, good. Now back to the question. Then test your program. So let's test the program. So since we have written another function for main, we must call that function, isn't it? If we don't need to call a function. Is that understood? And what do we call a function? At the end of the program, isn't it? That is what we'll call the function. Then we'll call main. Is this understood? So let's run this. Please enter your message. Is that understood? So let me type ABC12 K. Okay, good. So let's take a look at the error that is given so that we can find where the error is. So it's saying that x1, x2, x3, x4 is equal to this. this object is not subscriptive. So it's talking about this line of code where we receive the input, right? So let's go back there and see what actually happened there and what the error is saying. So like I said, the problem is this append, right? We cannot use for loop in append. That was the problem, isn't it? So but our aim is to add this array to this array, isn't it? That was our aim. So instead of saying value plus append, we say value plus. Is that correct? Value plus. Is that correct? That was what we did, right? So we say value plus. So instead of saying value dot append, it's just value plus. So let me comment this out. Then let's try to run this only. Right? Any question? Is that what we did? Is it value plus?
X in the range was in the range in square bracket.
No, it was like
Let's check this. Okay, that should be in a square bracket. So value, okay, we are adding two arrays, right? Okay, good, correct. Because we are adding two arrays, so it should be in a square bracket, like I said. Okay. So good, 65. We are done. Is this understood?
Yes.
So that is now correct. So it's just like adding one array plus another array. Is that understood? So now that we are done with this, so let's go back to run our main code. Run. So A, B, C, 1, 2, was it K? Yeah. Okay, good. Let's take a look at this again. Not enough values to unpack. Expect 5, got 3. What does that mean? It's still on the same line of code, right? Expect 5, got 3. Yeah. Look at it very well. It's complaining about this line of code. That it's expecting 5 things, but it got 3. This is x1, x2, x3, x5, but convert 0, convert 1, convert 2. So that means in that line of code, we shouldn't write it in the next line. It should all be on a straight line.
no, that's not the case. Like it's converting for the letters, but when it comes to the numbers, it's not getting a number. So for A, for
No,
B,
because we put like verify.
I just said it now. It's because, look at it, look at the error. The error is saying, look at the error very well. The error is saying that, let's run it again so you can understand the error. You must be able to understand the error. ABC 1, 2. So it's saying expect 5, got 3. Look at
Yes, because
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but 1, 2, 3.
yeah.
It's expecting to unpack 5 things, but got 3 things to unpack. That means it is wrong in the next line of code.
Just put comma.
Oh, because I didn't put a comma here. Can you see? I wrote user 0, comma, user 1, comma, user 2, no comma, user 3, user 4. Can you see? So that is a syntax error. So now that I put my comma, so since I put comma, I don't need to put it on the same line. So now it's complete. It's okay? Good. So let's run this now. So this becomes A, B, C, 1, 2, K. Enter. Okay, good. It's not about comma.
It's not on the same
Let's
line.
put it on the same line. So that is like A, B, C, 1, 2, K. Now, can you see? Your message has been, thank you. Now it's correct. So it's good we are making this mistake in class together. So that when you make this mistake when you are working alone or when you are in an examination, you understand the problem and you understand where the problem is coming from. So when you are unpacking, you can't write it on what? On another line. So the reason why I wrote that was because I was using the method of an array, right? Because the array I wrote it on what? On a straight line. Can you remember? So which is what? So which is wrong in this case? So ABC 1, 2, K. Let me say.
This characters with like 7 digits.
Now, I don't want to try with 7 because I didn't accommodate that in my code.
Like, we were given that.
Yes, that means you are supposed to have the condition in your code, but I didn't write it in my own code here. Do you understand that? So, for example, I write ABC 1, 2, 3, K, for example. It doesn't enqueue it because it's an invalid character. Do you understand? It's invalid.
It doesn't say invalid.
Even the checksum.
Yeah, this checksum will not even be correct in the first place. So it's still invalid. Do you understand? It's still invalid. So the next thing is what? Let me try. I need 10 characters, right? According to what the question is saying. Let me try QWERTZ. QWERTZ. Okay, it's invalid, right? Okay, TX. QWERTX. It's invalid. QWERTX. That means it's invalid. Because the first one is valid, right? It enqueued it. So let's try and check another one that is valid. Which other one can we check that is valid on our own? ABC140. Message has been enqueued. Can you see? It's valid. Is that understood? So when it's valid, if it's invalid, it will not enqueue. So let's also write any other thing invalid. We know 2 has been enqueued, right? Others are invalid. ABC what?
1, 2, 3, C.
ABC 1, 2, 3 C is more than 1, 2, 3. Are you sure? Let's take it. Let's use one that is valid.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2
3, 4, 5, G.
is invalid. It's more than 6 already. So let me say 1, 2, 1, 3 G. ABC 1, 2, 3. It asks us 10 times, right? This. Okay, good. So we're done. So the number of invalids is what? Is 8. Is that correct? Isn't that true? The number of invalids is 8. So this is working well because the only valid was 2, right? Invalid is what? Is 8. We got that correctly. But there is a problem somewhere. So let's go to where the problem is. Retrieve message is the problem. Is that understood? So let's go and check what is happening to retrieve message. It's saying if font is what? Cannot access what? Local variable fonts. So that means we did not declare it as what? As a global variable. Is that understood? That is what I have been telling you since all these days. So let's go back to retrieve message, right? Is it retrieve message?
Yeah.
So let's go back to retrieve message. We did not declare font as a global variable. Font. Just as simple as that. And what? And where? Global. Where? Someone was asking me in the grade class that is it compulsory to declare it as global? Why do we have to do that? I think you also asked me the same question, right? Someone asked me in the grade class.
What about message queue too?
Message queue must what? Must also be declared as global. Global. Then what? Message queue. Do we need to initialize message queue? No, it has already been. It will link to the outside message queue. Can you see the reason why I always tell you to always declare in each of what? Of the functions. Is that understood now? So let's run our code now. So you have problems in your exam, like I told you. You always have issues. You always have. Now, if you look at this question, everyone, all the issues we have had, will you lose mark for any of the question? No. What will you lose mark for? Just the screenshot. That is all. Because you followed all the instruction line by line. There is just omission of comma, right? And marks are not deducted for omission. There's only omission for the decline of what? Of global variable. And marks are not deducted for what? For omission. Is that understood? So all marks will be gotten in full. The only thing you lose mark for is what? Is your what? Is your screenshot. That was why you need to answer the questions line by line. And because I was answering the question line by line, I omitted some things, right? That is simple, it's fine like that. So let's run again. So I have ABC 1, 2, what? K, right? ABC 1, 1, 4. Is it 1, 4? 1, 4, O. Then ABC this. Others are invalid, so it won't enqueue. It asks us 10 times. So the value returned is what? ABC 1, 2, 1, which is the first thing in what? In the queue. Remember, we did not enqueue the what? The checksum, which is absolutely correct.
No, it's missing one.
Yes.
No, like ABC 1 to.
Yeah, it's missing.
Okay, ABC 1 instead of ABC 1, 2. So that means we need to correct that, isn't it?
It's missing
to 4 instead of 0 to 5. Can you see? Instead of 0 to 5. Now everyone is now a good programmer. So instead of 0 to 5, because it won't add the fourth element. Is that understood, guys? It's as simple as this. Do you see that this is much more simpler?
No, it's very simple.
But you have to think. This is not a question that you just get to and start typing. Do you understand? It's a question that you have to what? You have to think. So in your exam, guys, you are not seeing a question that you just type. The topic to this is computational thinking. Is that understood? It's computational thinking. Like I said, the topic is computational thinking and problem solving. So you will be given a question in the exam that you have to think and solve. So don't expect a problem that you just start typing. No. That's why you are given a pen. You are allowed to use a pen to write. Analyze your code. Don't throw away your pen and just type. That is number one problem everyone have in this class. When you see a question, everyone wants to type. You don't want to write. You are not writing the code, but you are writing how to write the code. Remember that this code that we all wrote now is from this diagram. Do you know? We use this diagram to write this code. Can you remember?
Yeah.
Yes. So don't forget this. That's number one. And don't forget that you have to think. The second question is you have to answer the questions line by line. Don't try and summarize. If you answer line by line, you may omit some things, like with declaring global. You will see it when you are running your code. Then you go back and put it there. But if you don't run line by line and you just read and try to summarize what you've read, then you will even go against the instruction. And you may even entirely write something that is wrong. And when your code does not run, you won't know when you have made a mistake.
We don't get marks for declaration.
Declaration is number one.
Just
That
one.
is where you get your mark from.
Decided.
Others, you don't get any mark. You don't get any mark for others. Yeah.
For the coming test, will it be the same parts that you told us to study for the previous test?
Yes. Yes. And for your next test, is a test that you have to think, which is the reason why I said it should be more difficult, not like difficult that you can't solve, but difficulty in terms of thinking. It's not something you guys should not be expecting a test that you just have to just type. No. Don't forget it is computational thinking. You are solving a problem. So if I'm giving you a question on bubble sort, it is not like you just write if this is greater than this. You have to think. If I'm giving you a problem on recursive function, you have to think what the base case is, what the recursive function is, everything you have to think before you start writing. So when I give you a question on recursive function, it's not a question that you just start typing. Type. No, you have to think on what to do. Is that understood? Good. Any other question? So guys, give me a round of applause for giving me a good question. Thank you guys for coming.
This Saturday.